The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched so wide that its far walls disappeared into a haze of distance. Thousands of alien beings filled the chamber, representing species from every corner of known space. Some floated in bubbles of methane gas. Others stood on platforms adjusted for their gravity needs. A few existed only as energy patterns, their consciousness held in shimmering fields of light. Commander Sarah Chen stood alone at the center of it all. She was a small figure in her dark blue uniform, surrounded by beings that had traveled the stars for thousands of years before humans ever discovered fire. The weight of their stares pressed down on her like a physical thing. She kept her face calm and her hands steady at her sides. Above her, High Arbiter Velmora loomed on the central platform. The Valkara leader was a being of living crystal, 9 feet tall with a body that caught and bent the light into rainbow patterns. When Velmora spoke, the voice came from everywhere at once, deep and resonant like bells made of stone. "Humanity stands accused," Velmora announced. The translation devices built into the hall carried the words to every species in their own language. "In the 50 years since joining our council, your kind has expanded too fast. You have claimed 17 colony worlds. You have built military stations and neutral zones. You have refused to limit your breeding populations. Your ambition threatens the careful balance we have maintained for 10,000 years." Sarah said nothing. She had been warned this was coming. For months, the older species had been meeting in secret, discussing the human problem. Humanity's rapid growth scared them. In just 5 decades, humans had gone from barely leaving their own solar system to having a presence in dozens of star systems. While other species took centuries to establish a single colony, humans built 3 or 4 at a time. A delegate from the Thrix Collective rose to speak. The insectoid being clicked its mandibles, and the translation came through sharp and angry. "Humans are reckless. They terraform planets without proper surveys. They breed without restriction. They arm their ships with weapons that violate 12 different treaties. They must be stopped before they consume everything." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Sarah noticed how many species nodded or made their equivalent gestures of approval. The old powers had made up their minds before this meeting ever started. "We propose protective custody," said Ambassador Rex of the Gorlan Empire. The bear-like alien was covered in blue fur that sparked with bioelectricity. "All human colony worlds will be placed under council supervision. Human military forces will be reduced to system defense only. Human expansion will be frozen for a period of no less than 5 centuries, while your species learns proper galactic citizenship." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. Protective custody was just a polite word for conquest. They wanted to cage humanity, to keep humans from threatening the old order where ancient species made all the decisions, and newcomers stayed quiet and grateful for whatever scraps they were given. "The alternative," Velmora said, and now the voice carried clear threat, "is military action. We do not wish for conflict, Commander Chen. But the Council has mobilized a combined fleet of 12,000 warships. They are currently positioned at the edge of human space. If humanity does not accept our terms within 48 hours, those ships will advance and take by force what you refuse to give peacefully." 12,000 ships. Sarah knew humanity's entire military could field maybe 200 ships that could match Council technology. The humans had other vessels, hundreds of them, but they were system defense craft not made for the kind of war the Council could bring. On paper, this wasn't even a fair fight. It was extermination. The chamber went silent. Every being present waited for humanity's response. Some looked eager, anticipating a young species learning its place. Others looked sad, as if they regretted what was about to happen but saw no other choice. Sarah took a slow breath. She had orders from Earth, from the human government that had prepared for this possibility. For 20 years, humanity had known this moment might come. Now it was here. "I have heard your accusations," Sarah said, her voice steady and clear. The translation systems carried her words to thousands of alien minds. "I have heard your threats. Before I respond formally, I need to know something. Is this truly the choice you offer? Submission or destruction? There is no third path?" Velmora's crystalline body seemed to harden, light refracting sharply. "There is no third path. Humanity will accept guidance from its elders, or learn a harsh lesson about defying those who have maintained galactic peace for millennia." Sarah nodded slowly. She reached into her uniform jacket and pulled out a small device no bigger than her palm. She held it up where everyone could see. Several species tensed. weapon systems coming online in case this was some kind of attack. But Sarah just pressed her thumb to the device's surface. Then I am authorized to inform the Galactic Council that humanity rejects both options, she said. Instead, we invoke Protocol Genesis. Confused silence filled the chamber. Species looked at each other, checking databases, searching for any reference to this protocol. Nothing came up. No treaty bore that name. No human document they had ever seen mentioned it. What trickery is this? Demanded a delegate from the Azurn Commonwealth. There is no Protocol Genesis in any galactic charter. No, Sarah agreed. There isn't. But there is in ours. Velmora leaned forward, light scattering dangerously from the crystalline body. Explain yourself, human. What game are you playing? No game, High Arbiter, Sarah said. Just a truth we have kept hidden until it became absolutely necessary. You have 48 hours to reconsider your ultimatum and withdraw your fleets from human space. I strongly suggest you use that time to think carefully about what you think you know about humanity. You threaten us? Rex stood to his full height, electricity crackling across his fur. With what? Your few hundred ships against our thousands? This is madness. Sarah smiled then, and it was not a warm expression. I threaten no one. I simply inform you that you have made assumptions about humanity, based on incomplete information. You believe us to be a young species stumbling into space for the first time. You believe we borrowed or stole whatever technology we possess. You believe you understand what you face. She held up the device again. A small light on its surface had turned from red to green. Somewhere far away, systems were waking up after a sleep of millions of years. You are wrong on every count, Sarah continued. Protocol Genesis is now active. In 48 hours, you will understand why humanity has been so careful, so quiet, so patient while we watched and learned about each of you. We needed to be sure. Now we are. Sure of what? Velmora demanded. That you are not what destroyed us last time, Sarah said simply. That you are not the enemy our ancestors fought. That you deserve to know the truth before we reveal what we have been hiding. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. No one tried to stop her. They were too confused, too shocked by the confidence in her voice. Commander Chen, Velmora called out. What have you been hiding? Sarah paused at the doorway and looked back at the assembled might of galactic civilization. Everything, she said. The Council has 48 hours. Use them wisely. Then she was gone, leaving behind a chamber full of aliens who suddenly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. Within minutes, the Council fleet received orders to advance slowly toward human space, ready for whatever trick the humans were planning. They expected desperation. They expected bluffing. They expected nothing that could truly threaten them. They would soon learn how wrong they were. 20 years earlier, the mining ship Fortune's Edge drifted through the outer reaches of the Oort cloud, far beyond where any planets orbited the sun. Captain Marcus Webb watched the scanner screens with tired eyes. His crew had been out here for 6 months, mapping ice formations and looking for mineral deposits that might be worth commercial extraction. It was boring work, but it paid well. Got something weird here. Captain, called out his sensor officer, a young woman named Rita Voss. She frowned at her screen, tapping it like the readings might change if she hit it hard enough. Big contact. Really big. But it's cold. Temperature matches the surrounding ice. Marcus pushed himself over to her station in the low gravity. How big? 3 kilometers long. Maybe more. The ice is interfering with the scan. Rita looked up at him, confused. Could be a captured asteroid, I guess. But the density is all wrong. Too regular. Something about the reading made Marcus's stomach tighten. He had spent 30 years in deep space and learned to trust his instincts. Change course. Take us in for a closer look. The Fortune's Edge adjusted its trajectory, closing in on the contact. As they got closer, the object resolved on their visual scans. What they saw made no sense at all. It looked like a ship. Not an asteroid, not a natural formation, but a constructed vessel buried in millions of years of accumulated ice and rock. The parts they could see showed straight lines, deliberate angles, the clear marks of intelligent design. But the ice coating suggested the thing had been here for an impossible amount of time. That's not possible, Rita whispered. Nothing's been out here that long. The solar system isn't even that old. But Marcus was looking at something else on the sensors. There's more. Look. He highlighted several other contacts in the area, all roughly the same size, all showing the same impossible characteristics. This isn't one ship. It's a fleet. They spent the next week carefully excavating one of the vessels using laser cutters to melt away the ice. What they found underneath made them call Earth immediately, bypassing normal corporate channels to go straight to the military. The ship was human, not alien. Not some unknown species. Human. They found symbols etched into the hull, and while the language was so ancient that no database could translate it, the genetic markers were unmistakable. The technology, the design philosophy, even the dimensions of doorways and control surfaces, all matched human proportions and thinking. Dr. Sarah Kamathi arrived 3 weeks later with a team of archaeologists, linguists, and military analysts. She stood in the cargo bay of the research vessel they had brought, staring at a fragment of hull plating that her team had carefully removed from the ancient ship. "The carbon dating is confirmed," she said, reading from her tablet. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. "This structure is 4.2 million years old, give or take 100,000 years. "That's impossible," said General Hammond, the military representative. "Humans didn't exist 4 million years ago. We were barely separated from other apes. We were still in trees, not building starships." "I know what the science says," Sarah replied. "I also know what the evidence shows. This was built by humans, or by something so close to human that every test we can run says it's us. The genetic material we found in preserved biological samples, the degraded DNA, it matches human DNA within a margin of error of less than 1%. She pulled up images on the wall screen. They showed more finds from inside the vessel. Control surfaces with labels in an unknown script. Chairs sized for human bodies. Even what looked like living quarters with beds, storage spaces, and what might have been a kitchen area. "They were like us," Rita said softly. She had joined the research team, too fascinated by the discovery to leave. "They ate, they slept, they lived just like we do." Over the next year, more teams arrived. They excavated 17 vessels in total, each one massive beyond anything humanity currently built. Slowly, carefully, they began to crack the language. It shared roots with human languages, distant and ancient but recognizable once they had enough samples. The ship's data cores were still intact, protected by some kind of quantum storage system that had kept them safe for millions of years. What they read in those files changed everything. Humanity thought they knew about themselves. The builders called themselves the progenitors, and they had been human. Not an ancestor species, not a parallel evolution, but actual humans identical to the people walking around on Earth today. They had built an empire that stretched across the galaxy. They had mastered technology that bent the rules of physics itself. They had lived, thrived, and grown for 200,000 years, and then something had destroyed them. The records called it the unmaking, some kind of dimensional threat that fed on advanced civilizations. The progenitors had fought a war that nearly tore reality apart. They had won barely, but their civilization was shattered beyond repair. Trillions died. Entire star systems were erased from existence. The survivors did something radical. They couldn't maintain their civilization with so few left alive, and they feared that if they tried to rebuild to the same level, they might attract the unmaking again. So they decided to start over. Using genetic engineering and temporal manipulation technology, they seeded primitive proto-humans on Earth. They encoded certain traits, certain tendencies toward innovation and survival into the genetic code. Then they built these ships, programmed them with caretaker AI systems, and put them into deep hibernation. The ships would sleep until humanity evolved again, naturally hidden among the normal species of the galaxy. They would sleep until humans rediscovered space travel. And they would sleep until humanity faced an existential threat. "It's insurance," Sarah explained to the emergency session of world leaders gathered in Geneva. "The progenitors made sure humanity would rise again, but they also made sure we would have protection if we needed it. These ships are our inheritance from a version of us that lived and died millions of years before we were born. Can we use them?" asked the Secretary General. "Can we even understand the technology?" "We're learning," Sarah said. "The AI systems are designed to teach us, to help us. But they're also very clear about their purpose. These ships exist to protect humanity from extinction-level threats. They're not tools of conquest. They're not weapons of war. They're guardians. Who decides what counts as an extinction-level threat? asked the Chinese premier. Sarah hesitated. We do. The ships respond to human command, but only if we're acting in genuine defense. The AI systems evaluate our intent. They won't wake up to help us conquer. They'll only wake up if we're truly in danger. For the next 20 years, humanity kept the discovery absolutely secret. They built research facilities in the deep ice of the Oort cloud, hidden from any possible observation. They reverse-engineered what technology they could, making great leaps in energy systems, materials science, and quantum computing. But they couldn't truly operate the ancient warships, not yet. The technology was too advanced, built on principles humanity was only beginning to understand. They also began a careful program of expansion and observation. Humanity joined the Galactic Council, but always watched, always analyzed. They needed to know if the other species were threats. They needed to make sure the unmaking, or something like it, wasn't lurking among the stars. And now, with the Council's ultimatum, the time had come to reveal the truth. Deep in the Oort cloud, in facilities built into the ancient ice, technicians activated systems that had slept for millions of years. Quantum processors came online. Power cores that operated on zero-point energy began to hum with life. AI minds, older than human civilization but designed to serve humanity, woke from their long sleep. The ships were enormous, dwarfing anything humans or the Council species had built. Their hulls were black as void, constructed from materials that didn't fully exist in normal spacetime. Weapon systems that could unmake matter at the quantum level began their startup sequences. Shields that bent space itself around the ships flickered into existence. In 17 locations across the outer solar system, and in hidden facilities in a dozen other star systems, the ancient fleet began to wake. Humanity's inheritance, built by a version of humanity that had fallen to save the future, was ready to defend its children. Commander Sarah Chen, standing on the bridge of the human flagship, received the confirmation signals. Protocol Genesis was active. The warships that predated all known civilization were awake. Now the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. And nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Krovik of the Gorlan Empire watched the tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet, combined with forces from 17 other Council species, formed the largest military armada assembled in 3,000 years. 12,000 warships spread across a front 20 light hours wide, advancing steadily toward human space. The humans are deploying their forces, reported his tactical officer. We count 173 vessels taking defensive positions around their colony worlds. Krovik's fur rippled with what his species considered amusement. 173 against 12,000. Do they think courage alone will save them? Perhaps they believe we will not actually attack, suggested his second-in-command. That our ultimatum was merely for negotiation. Then they will learn otherwise, Krovik said. He opened a channel to the other fleet commanders. All ships, this is Admiral Krovik. We advance to the human border worlds. If they resist, we fire warning shots only. We are here to occupy, not to massacre. The Council wants human worlds intact, not turned to debris. The great fleet moved forward. Krovik had fought in 6 major conflicts during his career, and he knew what victory looked like before the first shot was fired. The humans were brave but foolish. Their technology was decent, borrowed and adapted from Council designs, but they had no answer to concentrated firepower from dozens of species working together. The human border world of New Seattle lay ahead, a thriving colony of 4 million people. Human ships formed a defensive sphere around it, a brave but meaningless gesture. Krovik prepared to order the standard overwhelming display that usually made defenders surrender without bloodshed. Then his sensor officer made a confused sound, somewhere between a growl and a whine. Sir, we're detecting spatial anomalies. Multiple contacts appearing across all fronts. I don't understand these readings. They're showing mass signatures that are impossible. Explain, Krovik demanded. Something is emerging from quantum fold space, but the mass readings say objects the size of moons are appearing. That can't be right. Nothing that large could use fold space technology. The energy requirements would be astronomical. The tactical display updated, and suddenly Krovik was seeing contacts appear across his entire fleet formation. Not dozens, not hundreds. Thousands of new contacts, each one registering as enormous, each one appearing from seemingly nowhere. Visual confirmation? Krovik asked, his voice tight. The main screen shifted to show external cameras. What Krovic saw made his blood run cold. Ships were appearing, massive beyond any scale he had ever encountered. Each vessel was at least 3 kilometers long, some even larger. Their hulls were absolutely black, not just dark but seemingly absorbing light itself. Strange symbols covered their surfaces, symbols that hurt to look at directly, as if they existed in more dimensions than the eye could process. Where did they come from? Someone whispered on the command channel. Count them, Krovic ordered. I need a full count. The tactical officer worked frantically at his station. Still counting, Admiral. So far, over 2,000 contacts. No, 3,000. Sir, they're still appearing. They're everywhere. Between our ships, around the human worlds, behind our formation. It's like they're surrounding us. Krovic checked the data himself, unable to believe what he was hearing. The human fleet of a few hundred ships now had backup that numbered in the thousands. Ships that were bigger, denser, and according to sensors, operating on principles that physics said shouldn't be possible. Energy readings are off the scale, reported the science officer. These vessels use power generation systems that make our reactors look like chemical fires. And their hulls, Admiral. My scans can't determine what they're made of. The material exists partially outside normal space-time. A message came through on all channels, human and Council. Commander Sarah Chen's voice, calm and clear. Council fleet, you are now surrounded by humanity's true military capability. These are the warships we have kept hidden while we learned about you. While we determined if you were friends or threats. We ask you again, withdraw your forces and negotiate in good faith. There need be no violence today. This is impossible, someone said on the command network. Krovic thought it might have been Admiral Velkos of the Thrix Collective. Where were these ships built? How did you hide construction on this scale? Sarah's response was measured, each word carefully chosen. These ships were not built recently. They are our inheritance from those who came before. You asked what we were hiding. This is the answer. Humanity is not new to the stars. We are returning to them. Krovic opened a private channel to the other fleet commanders. Analysis. Can we fight these vessels? Unknown capabilities, responded Fleet Master Gorth of the Azuran Commonwealth. But there are 3,000 of them and 12,000 of us. Numbers still favor us. My sensors detect weapon systems charging, warned Admiral Velkos. Multiple vessels are bringing their primary weapons online. On the main screen, one of the massive black ships moved forward. It was alone, separating from the others, approaching the Council fleet without hurry. Krovic checked the designation the computers had assigned it. Unknown Contact 1. The human transponder signal identified it differently. Predecessor 1 Council fleet. Sarah Chen's voice came through again. That vessel is designated Predecessor 1. It is the command ship of our ancient fleet. I am about to authorize a demonstration of its capabilities. This is not an attack. This is a warning. I suggest you observe carefully. The massive ship came to a stop 300,000 kilometers from the nearest Council vessels. Something on its hull opened. A port or weapon system that glowed with a light that shouldn't exist, a color that wasn't quite in the visible spectrum. All ships, emergency shields, Krovic shouted. Brace for attack. The weapon fired. Not at the Council fleet, but past it into empty space beyond. The beam that emerged was thin, no wider than a meter. But what it did to space itself made every physicist in the fleet question their understanding of reality. Space tore. Not the space that existed in their dimension, but space itself, the underlying fabric of the universe. The beam created a line of absolute nothing, a void where matter, energy, and even the quantum foam that filled vacuum simply ceased to exist. The tear was 50 kilometers long and lasted for 3 seconds before reality slowly, painfully flowed back to fill the gap. Every sensor in the Council fleet screamed alerts. Every AI system flagged the event as impossible. Every living being watching understood one thing. If that weapon had fired at the fleet instead of past it, thousands of ships would have been erased from existence. Silence filled the command channels. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. That is one weapon from one ship, Sarah Chen said quietly. We have 3,000 such ships. Each carries dozens of weapon systems, most of which operate on principles your science has not yet discovered. Our shields bend space-time itself, making us nearly impossible to hit. Our engines fold reality, letting us move faster than anything you possess. Our AI systems are older than your recorded history and smarter than your best computers. She paused, letting the implication sink in. But we do not want to use them. We do not want war. We spent 20 years hiding these capabilities while we learned about you, while we determined if the galaxy held friends or ancient enemies. We have concluded that you are not our enemies, but neither will we submit to threats. Krovik found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. If you possess such power, why hide it? Why pretend to be weak? Because power without wisdom leads to destruction, Sarah replied. Our ancestors learned that lesson. They possessed technology like this, and it made them arrogant. They grew careless. When a true threat emerged, they were unprepared because they thought themselves invincible. They nearly went extinct. We will not repeat their mistakes. You said these ships are your inheritance, said Admiral Velkos. From who? Humans have been in space for only a century. Where did these vessels come from? That is a long story, Sarah said. One I am prepared to tell, but only if you are prepared to listen. I propose we cease hostilities immediately. Withdraw your fleet to neutral space. Send representatives to meet with us. Let us explain what humanity truly is and what we offer the galaxy. Krovik looked at the tactical display, at the thousands of impossible ships, at the power readings that broke every scale, at the 3-second tear in reality that was still making his sensors glitch. He thought about the Council's ultimatum, about their threats and demands. Council fleet commanders, he said over the command channel, we need to vote. Do we engage or do we withdraw to negotiate? The vote was swift and unanimous. When facing power this overwhelming, when seeing weapons that could erase matter itself, pride seemed like a poor reason to start a war. Commander Chen, Krovik said formally, the Council fleet will withdraw to neutral space. We accept your offer of negotiation, but we demand answers. The galaxy has a right to know what humanity has been hiding. Agreed, Sarah said. He could hear relief in her voice. Thank you, Admiral. You have made the wise choice. The truth will shock you. The truth will change everything you think you know about galactic history. But the truth needs to be told. For all our sakes. The Council fleet began its withdrawal, moving slowly back from human space. The ancient warships did not fall. The meeting took place on the neutral station Harmony's Rest, a massive diplomatic facility that orbited a star roughly halfway between human and Council space. Every major species sent representatives. The chamber was even larger than the Council Hall, designed to accommodate the historic moment everyone knew was coming. Commander Sarah Chen stood before them all, with Dr. Sarah Kamathi beside her. Behind them, holographic displays waited to show the evidence they had gathered over 20 years of secret research. The weight of what they were about to reveal pressed down on Sarah's shoulders, but her voice remained steady. 20 years ago, she began, a human mining ship made a discovery in the outer reaches of our solar system. What they found changed everything we thought we knew about ourselves. I'm going to show you what we discovered, and then I will explain what it means. The displays lit up, showing images of the first excavation, the massive ships buried in ancient ice, the artifacts recovered from inside, the genetic samples that matched human DNA despite being millions of years old. Gasps and confused murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. High Arbiter Velamora leaned forward, light refracting sharply through crystalline features. You found ancient vessels in your system? Ships from some precursor species? Not precursor, Sarah said quietly. Predecessor. Those ships were built by humans. By people genetically identical to us who lived and died 4 million years ago. The chamber erupted in protest. Species shouted in dozens of languages, all saying variations of the same thing. Impossible, fraudulent, deceptive. Humans had evolved recently. Galactic surveys confirmed it. Earth showed signs of only recent industrial development. The timeline didn't work. I know how it sounds, Sarah said, raising her voice to be heard over the noise. I know it contradicts everything your science says about humanity. But the evidence doesn't lie. Dr. Kamathi has spent 2 decades analyzing every piece of data we recovered. Sarah, please explain what we found. Dr. Kamathi stepped forward, activating more displays. The genetic material we recovered from the ancient ships matches modern human DNA with 99.7% accuracy. The remaining 0.3% difference is entirely explained by genetic drift over 4 million years. The language, while ancient beyond anything in our historical records, shares fundamental root structures with modern human languages. The technology, while far more advanced than anything we currently possess, follows design philosophies that are distinctly human. She pulled up images of the ship's interiors, the vessel dimensions, the control interfaces, the living spaces, all designed for beings with human proportions. The preserved records we found in their data cores tell a story that explains everything. The displays shifted, showing translations of the ancient records. Text in an archaic script appeared alongside modern translations. Sarah Chen continued the explanation. The beings who built these ships called themselves the progenitors. They were human as any person on Earth today. 4 million years ago, they had built a civilization that spanned the galaxy. They had mastered technology that bent physics itself to their will. They lived not for centuries, but for thousands of years thanks to medical technology we are only beginning to understand. And then something destroyed them, Dr. Kimathi said. They called it the unmaking. Their records describe it as a dimensional threat, entities that existed partially outside normal reality, that fed on advanced civilizations. The progenitors fought a war against the unmaking that nearly destroyed the galaxy. Images appeared showing what looked like tears in space, similar to what Predecessor 1 had demonstrated to the Council fleet, but far larger, far more destructive. Entire star systems reduced to void, planets erased from existence, billions of lives extinguished in moments. The progenitors won, Sarah continued, but the cost was devastating. Their civilization collapsed. Trillions died. Their empire, built over 200,000 years, fell in less than a century of warfare. The survivors faced a choice: try to rebuild what they had lost, or try something different. The displays showed genetic engineering facilities, temporal manipulation devices, and records of a plan so ambitious it seemed insane. They chose to start over, Sarah explained. The progenitors believed their advanced technology had attracted the unmaking, had made them visible to threats that hunted civilizations at their peak. So they decided to fall on purpose, to reset their species, to give humanity a chance to rise again, but more carefully this time. They seeded Earth with genetically modified proto-humans, Dr. Kimathi said. They encoded certain traits into our DNA, tendencies toward innovation, adaptation, survival. Then they built these warships, programmed them with AI systems designed to protect humanity's future, and put everything into hibernation. The plan was elegant, Sarah said. Let humanity evolve naturally, without the technology that made the progenitors visible to cosmic threats. Let us rediscover space travel slowly, carefully, hidden among other species. The ancient ships would sleep until we needed them, until humanity faced an existential threat. They would wake up to protect us, to give us the tools our ancestors used to survive impossible odds. High Arbiter Velmora's voice cut through the stunned silence. You expect us to believe that humanity fell and rose again? That you somehow existed before any current galactic species? That these ships are millions of years old? We don't expect belief without proof, Sarah replied. She gestured to Dr. Kimathi, who activated a new set of displays. We have brought samples for independent analysis. Genetic material from the ancient ships, fragments of their data cores, material samples from their hulls. We invite every species here to examine them with your own scientists, your own equipment, your own methods. The evidence will speak for itself. Ambassador Rex of the Gorlan Empire stood, electricity crackling through his blue fur. Even if this story is true, and I emphasize if it does not change our concerns, you possess weapons that can tear reality itself. You have hidden a fleet that dwarfs anything the Council has ever assembled. How can we trust you with such power? Sarah had been waiting for this question. We hid this power because we needed to be certain about you. All of you. The progenitors' records warn about the unmaking, about entities that pretend to be normal species until they reveal their true nature. We spent 20 years observing the Council, learning about every species, analyzing your behavior, your wars, your peace treaties, your culture. She looked around at the assembled delegates. We concluded that you are not the unmaking. You are not cosmic predators hiding behind pleasant masks. You are simply species trying to survive and thrive just like us. Some of you are aggressive, some peaceful, some greedy, some generous. But you are normal, natural, real. You are potential allies, not ancient enemies. As for trust, Sarah continued, we offer a bargain. We will share the truth about our history, about the progenitors, about the technology they left behind. We will work with your scientists to verify everything we claim. In exchange, we ask for honest cooperation. No more threats. No more ultimatums. Let us work together as equals, not as subordinates to be controlled. A delegate from the Meridian Union, a species of flowing energy beings, spoke in tones like wind chimes. You speak of cosmic threats of the unmaking. Do you believe this threat still exists? Dr. Kamathi fielded this question. We don't know. The progenitor records suggest they defeated the unmaking 4 million years ago, but they were not certain they destroyed it completely. They put safeguards in place, built these guardianships because they feared the threat might return. Whether it still exists or not, we cannot say. But, Sarah added, if it does exist, we would rather face it with allies than alone. The progenitors fell because they grew arrogant and isolated. We will not make that mistake. Humanity alone, even with these ancient ships, might not be enough to face a cosmic-level threat. But humanity working with dozens of species sharing knowledge and technology, that might be enough. The chamber fell into discussion. Species consulted with their own delegations, analyzing the evidence, debating the implications. Hours passed. Sarah and Dr. Kamathi answered hundreds of questions, providing data, clarifying points, offering to share research. Finally, High Arbiter Velmora called for order. This council must vote on a response. Do we accept humanity's explanation and pursue cooperation, or do we view this as a threat that must be contained? The Thrix Collective delegate spoke first. Our scientists have done preliminary analysis of the samples provided. The genetic material does appear to be millions of years old and human in origin. This supports their claims. The Azurn Commonwealth representative added, we have examined the weapon demonstration. The technology used is far beyond anything in our databases. If humanity wanted to conquer, they could have done so already. The fact that they revealed this capability only when threatened suggests defensive intent. One by one, species voiced their positions. Some remained skeptical but willing to investigate further. Some were frightened by the implications. But none voted for continued hostility. The demonstration of power had been too overwhelming, and the offer of coup. 3 months after the confrontation, the galaxy looked very different. Joint research teams worked in the Oort cloud, carefully studying the ancient progenitor vessels under the watchful guidance of human scientists. Species that had threatened war now sent diplomats and scholars to learn about humanity's impossible history. The story of the progenitors spread across thousands of worlds, fascinating some and frightening others, but not everyone accepted the new reality. In the Velkara home system, deep within the crystal cities that had stood for 10,000 years, the High Council of Crystalline Elders met in secret. High Arbiter Velmora stood before them, light refracting anxiously through the crystalline body. The other elder, Krelnak, has been speaking. One of the ancient Velkara said, the being was twice Velmora's size, its crystal structure dark with age. He claims humanity's rise threatens our position. He believes we should act before they grow stronger. Krelnak is wrong, Velmora said firmly. Humanity has proven they seek cooperation, not domination. Attacking them would be suicide. Did you not see what their ancient ships can do? We saw a demonstration meant to frighten us, the elder replied. But demonstrations can be faked. Perhaps humans have only a few such weapons. Perhaps they bluff with these stories of ancient heritage. Krelnak believes we should test their strength quickly, before they have time to prepare. Before Velmora could respond, alarms began shrieking throughout the crystal cities. The Velkara military, without authorization from the High Arbiter or the Council, had launched an attack on human space. Krelnak had acted on his own, taking control of 6 battle fleets and sending them toward the human colony of New Harmony. Madness, Velmora whispered, rushing toward the communication center. This is madness. He will doom us all. Far away in orbit around New Harmony, the attack arrived with little warning. 6 Velkara fleets, nearly 2,000 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and immediately opened fire on the human defensive platforms. The attack was sudden, vicious, and determined. On Earth, in the command center beneath Geneva, alarms screamed as the assault registered on long-range sensors. Commander Sarah Chen was pulled from sleep and arrived at her station within minutes, her mind racing through possibilities. Status, she demanded. Velkara attack on New Harmony, reported the tactical officer. 6 fleets, approximately 2,000 vessels. They've destroyed our outer defensive platforms and are advancing on the colony itself. 4 million civilians on that world, Commander. Sarah's jaw tightened. They had tried peace. They had revealed the truth. They had offered cooperation, and still someone chose violence. Are the progenitor ships active? Predecessor 1 is already moving, the officer confirmed. It detected the attack and is en route to New Harmony. Estimated arrival in 4 minutes. Just one ship? Sarah asked. The AI system designated it as sufficient for the threat level. Predecessor 1 is asking for confirmation to engage with non-lethal force if possible. Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define how the galaxy saw humanity going forward. Too gentle and others would test them. Too violent, and they would become the threat they claimed not to be. Confirmed. Non-lethal containment. Show them our power. But do not massacre them unless you have absolutely no choice. At New Harmony, the Velkara fleet pressed their attack. Admiral Krelnak himself commanded the assault from his flagship, convinced that humanity's ancient fleet was a myth or at least greatly exaggerated. He believed that a quick, decisive strike would shatter the human bluff and restore Velkara dominance. Then space rippled, and Predecessor 1 arrived. The massive black vessel appeared between the Velkara fleet and New Harmony, its 3-kilometer bulk seeming to absorb all light around it. It made no broadcast, issued no warnings. It simply acted. Systems activated across the ancient warship, technology that worked on principles the Velkara had never encountered. The ship didn't fire weapons. Instead, it projected a field invisible to the eye but devastating in effect. Time itself began to slow around the attacking vessels. Krelnak watched in horror as his ships began to freeze in space. Not physically, but temporally. The vessels hung suspended, their weapons fire dying mid-shot, their crews frozen in moments that stretched toward eternity. The effect spread across his entire fleet in seconds, touching 2,000 ships and locking them into temporal stasis. The flagship shuddered as the field reached it. Krelnak tried to order evasive maneuvers, but his crew moved slower and slower, their actions taking minutes instead of seconds. He watched the chronometer on his display, seeing time dilate, seeing seconds stretch into hours from his perspective, while the universe outside moved at normal speed. Then everything stopped. The flagship hung dead in space, frozen alongside every other vessel in the attack fleet. 2,000 Velkara warships trapped in temporal bubbles, their crews alive but locked outside normal time flow. Predecessor 1 sent a transmission to both the human colony and to Council space. The voice that spoke was artificial, but carried weight and authority that came from millions of years of purpose. This is Predecessor 1, Guardian Fleet Primary, the AI announced. An attack has been made on humanity. The attackers have been contained without loss of life. All vessels in temporal stasis will be released once appropriate authorities arrive to take custody. This is humanity's response to aggression. We defend, we contain, but we do not destroy unnecessarily. Let all witnesses carry this message to the galaxy. On Earth, Sarah Chen watched the display showing 2,000 frozen warships hanging in space around Predecessor 1. The ancient vessel had stopped an entire invasion fleet without firing a single destructive shot. The demonstration of power was even more impressive than the earlier warning. My God, someone whispered in the command center. They're not hurt? Sensors show all life signs normal, the tactical officer confirmed. The ships are intact. The crews are healthy. They're just stopped, frozen in time. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. The progenitor AI had chosen perfectly. Show overwhelming power but also restraint. Prove that humanity could defend itself absolutely, while also showing they had no desire for slaughter. It was a message the galaxy needed to see. Within hours, representatives from the Council arrived at New Harmony, led by High Arbiter Velmora personally. The Velkara leader's crystalline body seemed dim with shame as the diplomatic vessel approached the frozen fleet. Commander Chen, Velmora said over the communication channel, I offer my species' deepest apologies. Krelnak acted without authority, without sanction. He will be removed from all positions of power and punished according to our laws. Please release our people. We beg for mercy. Sarah had been authorized to speak for humanity in this moment. She chose her words carefully, knowing the galaxy was watching. High Arbiter, humanity does not desire vengeance. We understand that every species has elements that resist change, that fear what they don't understand. Krelnak made a mistake, but his people should not suffer eternally for it. She signaled to Predecessor 1. Release them. Let them return home. Let them carry the message that humanity defends but does not seek to punish. The ancient warship complied. The temporal fields collapsed and suddenly 2,000 Velkara ships surged back into normal time. On the flagships and throughout the fleet, crews gasped as they realized what had happened. Minutes had passed for them while hours had passed for the universe. They had been held helpless, completely at humanity's mercy, and humanity had shown mercy. "Thank you," Velmora said quietly. This is not how powerful species typically behave. Most would have destroyed the fleet, made an example. "We are not most species," Sarah replied. "We learned from our ancestors' mistakes. The progenitors grew arrogant with power and it nearly destroyed them. We will not repeat their errors. Power exists to protect, not to dominate." The Velkara fleet withdrew, escorted by council vessels. Krelnak was arrested upon return to his home system and would face trial for unauthorized military action. The incident, rather than sparking conflict, became a teaching moment for the galaxy. Humanity had proven 3 things in one action. They could defend themselves absolutely, they possessed restraint equal to their power, and they meant what they said about cooperation over conquest. In the weeks that followed, more species reached out to humanity with offers of genuine partnership. Trade agreements were signed. Joint research projects expanded. Cultural exchanges began. The galaxy, after the initial shock and fear, began to accept humanity not as newcomers but as the ancient civilization they truly were. 6 months after the confrontation, Commander Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of a human station in the Oort cloud. Before her, through reinforced windows, she could see the ancient progenitor ships. Most had returned to hibernation, their purpose fulfilled for now. Only Predecessor 1 remained active, hanging in space like a patient guardian. Dr. Kamathi joined her, carrying a tablet with new translations from the progenitor data cores. "There's something you need to see," she said quietly. "Something the AI has been waiting to tell us until it judged we were ready." Sarah took the tablet and read. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. "Is this accurate?" Admiral Zexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the planet below through the viewing screen. New Terra, the humans called it. A small colony world on the edge of unclaimed space. His 4 eyes narrowed as he reviewed the data again. This would be conquest number 128 for the Valdor Empire. The process was always the same. Send a fleet. Make demands. The new species would see the massive warships and surrender. Sometimes they resisted for a few hours. Sometimes they begged. But they always submitted in the end. 3,000 years of galactic dominance had taught the Valdor that overwhelming force always won. Zexthor's communication officer turned to him. "Admiral, the ultimatum has been transmitted. They have 1 hour to respond." "Good," Zexthor said. His scales rippled with satisfaction. He commanded 500 warships, more than enough to break any resistance. The humans were new to space. Their ships looked primitive. This would be over quickly. The hour passed slowly. Zexthor expected surrender at any moment. Most species gave up within minutes of seeing the Valdor fleet. But the humans remained silent. When the deadline arrived, his communication officer looked confused. "Admiral, we have their response." "Play it," Zexthor ordered. A human face appeared on the screen, male with brown skin and gray hair. He wore a simple military uniform. "This is Governor Marcus Chen of New Terra Colony. We have received your demands. Our answer is no. This is our home. We will defend it." The transmission ended. Zexthor felt shock ripple through his body. They were refusing? He checked the numbers again. New Terra had only 23 warships in orbit. Small vessels barely worthy of the name. Against his 500? This was madness. "They must not understand," his tactical officer said. "Should we demonstrate our power? Destroy one of their moons?" "No," Zexthor said. "They will learn soon enough. All ships prepare for battle. Target their defensive fleet. Leave the planet intact. We need the population alive for labor." The Valdor fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Centuries of military tradition guided every movement. They had destroyed thousands of enemy fleets. This would be no different, but it was different. The human ships did not flee. They charged directly at the Valdor formation. Zexthor watched in disbelief as the tiny vessels accelerated to impossible speeds. They were not trying to win. They were trying to do maximum damage before they died. Evasive maneuvers, He shouted, but it was too late. 3 human ships slammed directly into Valdor cruisers. The explosions lit up space like new stars. Then the real attack began. The humans deployed thousands of small drones, not sophisticated weapons. Simple machines packed with explosives. They swarmed the Valdor fleet like angry insects. Zexthor's ships fired their weapons, advanced particle beams that could slice through metal like paper. They destroyed hundreds of drones, but there were always more. And while the Valdor focused on the drones, the human warships attacked from unexpected angles. The humans fought with no regard for their own survival. One damaged human ship, its hull torn open to space, rammed a Valdor destroyer. Another set itself to overload and drifted into a cluster of Valdor fighters before exploding. It was chaos. It was insanity. They are using civilian ships, his tactical officer reported. Those cargo vessels are launching kinetic projectiles. Zexthor could not believe it. The humans had armed their merchant ships and sent them into battle. Some were clearly mining vessels, using their drilling lasers as weapons. Others were passenger liners with missile pods strapped to their hulls. It was crude, desperate, and somehow it was working. The battle lasted 6 hours. In the end, the Valdor fleet won. All 23 human warships were destroyed. The civilian vessels were either captured or obliterated. New Terra's orbital defenses were reduced to debris. But Zexthor looked at his casualty reports and felt cold dread. 200 ships lost. Another 100 damaged beyond immediate repair. 40% of his fleet was gone. In his 3 centuries of service, he had never seen such losses. The Empire had not suffered casualties like this in 200 years. "Scan for survivors," he ordered. "Bring them aboard for interrogation." His soldiers recovered 17 human survivors from the wreckage. Zexthor went to the medical bay to see them himself. He needed to understand what kind of species would fight so fiercely. The humans were injured, some badly, but none of them seemed afraid. They looked at their Valdor captors with something Zexthor could not quite identify. Defiance? Pity? One human soldier, missing an arm and covered in burns, actually smiled at him. "You won," the human said in broken Valdor language. "Congratulations." Was it worth it? Zexthor felt anger rise in his chest. "You fought bravely for primitives, but your courage was wasted. Your world is now property of the Valdor Empire." The human laughed. Actually laughed. "Is that what you think? That you won? Your fleet is destroyed. Your planet is defenseless. What else would you call it?" The human's smile faded. Now Zexthor saw what he had not recognized before. Not defiance. Not pity. Sympathy. "We are a colony, Admiral. Farmers, miners, families who came here to build new lives. That fleet you destroyed? Colonial militia. Weekend warriors playing soldier. And you lost 200 ships to them." Zexthor's blood went cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean," the human said softly, "that Earth's actual military is coming. The real fleet, and they are not happy about what you did here." Before Zexthor could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. His communication officer's voice came through. "Admiral, urgent message from our scout ships. Multiple large fleets detected. Human signatures. They are converging on the system." Zexthor left the medical bay and ran to the bridge. The display showed red warning indicators everywhere. 15 human fleets, each one larger than his own. And they were all moving toward New Terra. He immediately sent a priority transmission to the Valdor homeworld. Emperor Vaxiul himself responded within the hour. The Emperor's face filled the screen, his expression stern. "Admiral Zexthor, report." Zexthor explained everything. The battle. The losses. The incoming human fleets. He watched the Emperor's face change from stern to concerned to disbelieving. "You lost 200 ships to 23 primitive vessels?" "Yes, my Emperor. But there is more. According to the prisoners, what we fought was not their military. It was colonial defense forces. Civilians with minimal training." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. "What are you saying, Admiral?" "I am saying we may have made a grave error, my Emperor. We attacked what we thought was a weak species, but I do not think they are weak. I think we just saw their weakest forces, and those forces cost us 40% of my fleet." The Emperor's expression hardened. "Retreat to the proximal defense line. I will send reinforcements. The 7th Grand Armada will deal with these humans. 5,000 ships should be more than sufficient. My Emperor, with respect, I recommend we attempt diplomacy. Perhaps we can. We are the Valdor Empire." The Emperor's voice thundered. "We do not retreat from primitives. We do not negotiate with species who refuse our rightful dominion. The 7th Grand Armada will crush them. That is final. The transmission ended. Zexthor stared at the blank screen. Then he looked at the tactical display. 15 human fleets were still approaching. And somewhere beyond them, Earth waited. A planet he had never seen. A civilization he had underestimated. He thought about the wounded human soldier and his sympathetic expression, like someone watching a person walk toward a cliff in the dark. Zexthor gave the order to retreat. As his damaged fleet limped away from New Terra, he could not shake the feeling that the Valdor Empire had just made the worst mistake in its 3,000-year history. Emperor Vaxul sat in his throne room and listened to the reports. The loss at New Terra troubled him, but he refused to show weakness. The Valdor Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia. One setback meant nothing. The 7th Grand Armada is ready, my emperor, his military advisor announced. 5,000 ships. Commander Rathzek has been briefed on human tactics. And what is his assessment? The emperor asked. He believes Admiral Zexthor was caught off guard by unconventional warfare. With proper preparation and overwhelming numbers, the humans will be crushed quickly. The emperor nodded. 5,000 ships. The 7th Grand Armada had toppled entire civilizations. It represented 15% of the Empire's total military strength. More than enough to handle one primitive species. Send them immediately. I want this resolved before other species begin to question our power. What the Emperor did not know was that his intelligence network had failed him completely. Valdor scouts had been watching Earth itself, and their reports painted a picture of minimal defenses. A few orbital stations, small patrol fleets, nothing impressive. The scouts interpreted this as weakness. They did not understand human military doctrine. Humans did not believe in static defense. They believed in projection of power. Their real strength was not in orbit around Earth. It was scattered across hundreds of systems, ready to deploy anywhere at any time. Commander Rathzek led the 7th Grand Armada with confidence. He had studied the battle at New Terra. The humans relied on surprise and suicidal tactics. His fleet would stay in formation. They would use their superior weapons at long range. They would not allow the humans to get close. The Armada traveled for 3 weeks to reach the Proxima Junction, a major trade route hub. Intelligence suggested this was where the human fleet would make its stand. Rathzek's scouts reported 800 human vessels waiting for them. Only 800, Rathzek said with satisfaction. They are either overconfident or desperate. All ships battle formation. We advance as one wall. Destroy them at maximum range. The two fleets met in the empty space between stars. The Valdor began firing their particle cannons at extreme distance. The weapons were accurate and deadly. Several human ships exploded immediately. But the humans did not behave as expected. Instead of charging recklessly, they scattered. Their fleet broke into dozens of smaller groups, each moving in different directions at high speed. It reminded Rathzek of water flowing around rocks. Maintain formation, he ordered. Do not break ranks. Then the human weapons arrived. Missiles moving at 90% of light speed. By the time Valdor sensors detected them, there was less than a second to react. They tore through Valdor shields like they were not there. Dozens of ships exploded in the first salvo. How are they generating that much acceleration? His science officer shouted. It does not matter. Return fire. But the humans were already inside the Valdor formation. Their smaller ships zipped between the massive Valdor cruisers, launching torpedoes and railgun slugs at close range. Rathzek realized with horror that his own ships could not fire without risking hitting each other. Then the psychological warfare began. Human transmissions flooded every Valdor communication channel. Music. Strange, aggressive music with pounding rhythms and screaming vocals. Mixed with the music were recordings of human laughter, human battle cries, humans singing while their ships burned. Block those transmissions, Rathzek ordered, but it was too late. The psychological effect was devastating. Valdor crews began to panic. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to enjoy combat, an enemy that sang while dying. The human AI swarms came next. Thousands of small drones, each one learning from the others. They adapted to Valdor point defense in real time. When the Valdor switched tactics, the drones switched faster. It was like fighting a single organism with 10,000 bodies. The battle raged for 14 hours. The Valdor's superior numbers slowly ground down the human fleet. One by one, human ships were destroyed, but the cost was terrible. For every human ship that died, it took 4 or 5 Valdor ships with it. When the last human vessel finally exploded, Rathzek looked at his fleet status and felt sick. Only 1,200 ships remained functional. 3,800 were destroyed or too damaged to continue. The 7th Grand Armada, pride of the Empire, was broken. "Sir, we are detecting escape pods," his tactical officer reported. "Should we destroy them?" "No," Rathzek said quietly. "Bring them aboard. We need answers." The Valdor recovered 43 human survivors. Most were injured. All were brought to the flagship for interrogation. Rathzek went personally to question the highest-ranking prisoner, a human female with the rank insignia of a captain. She sat calmly, despite her injuries. Her left leg was broken. Burns covered half her face, but her eyes were clear and steady. "I am Commander Rathzek of the Valdor 7th Grand Armada. You fought well, but your fleet is destroyed." "Third Fleet," the captain said. "We were Third Fleet, what?" "You didn't destroy our fleet. You destroyed Third Fleet, specifically Third Fleet's Rapid Response Squadron. The main body of Third Fleet is 2 systems away, dealing with pirates." Rathzek felt confusion wash over him. "You are saying that was not your main force?" The captain smiled sadly. "Commander, Earth maintains 12 numbered fleets. Each one is comparable in size to what you just fought. That's not counting system defense forces, or colonial militaries, or reserve fleets, or—" "That is impossible," Rathzek interrupted. "No species can maintain such a military. We don't maintain them, not really. Most of Third Fleet were reservists called up 2 weeks ago, regular people with military training who were working civilian jobs. When we need a fleet, we just build ships and call up personnel. Our shipyards can produce 1,000 vessels a month if we push." Rathzek stared at her. "Why would any civilization maintain such capacity?" The captain's expression turned distant. "Because we spent 10,000 years killing each other. We got very, very good at it. World wars, nuclear weapons, conflicts that killed hundreds of millions. When we finally reached the stars, we didn't forget those lessons. We just hoped we'd never need them again." Before Rathzek could respond, alarms blared. His sensor officer's voice came through the communication system. "Commander, multiple fleet signatures detected. 30 separate groups. Total count exceeds 10,000 vessels." Rathzek ran to the bridge. The display showed red warning markers everywhere. Human fleets converging from multiple directions. Not just 1 or 2. Dozens of them. He opened a secure channel to the Emperor. This time, he did not wait for formalities. "My Emperor, the 7th Grand Armada has suffered catastrophic losses. Only 1,200 ships remain operational. And sir, we have detected massive human fleet movements. They are converging on our position with overwhelming numbers." The Emperor's face appeared, and for the first time in Rathzek's service, he saw fear in his ruler's eyes. "How many ships?" "Our estimate is over 10,000, my Emperor. And based on interrogation of prisoners, this may be only a fraction of their total military capacity. The fleet we destroyed was identified as Third Fleet. They claim to have 12 such fleets plus additional forces." The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "Retreat immediately. Fall back to the inner systems. I am recalling all distant fleets. We must consolidate our forces. My Emperor, what about the conquered territories? Leave them. Our priority is defending the core worlds. If the humans continue their advance, we will need every ship we have." The transmission ended. Rathzek gave the orders to retreat. His surviving ships began the long journey home. As they fled, he thought about the human captain's words. A civilization that spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. A species that considered massive fleets to be normal. The Valdor Empire had ruled for 3,000 years, by being the strongest military power in the galaxy. But they had never encountered a species for whom war was not just a tool of empire. For humans, war was part of their cultural identity, something they had refined across countless conflicts. Rathzek realized that the Empire had not attacked a weak species. They had attacked a sleeping predator, and now that predator was awake and very, very angry. In the medical bay, the human captain sat alone in her cell. She could hear the Valdor crew's panicked voices through the walls. She felt pity for them. They truly did not understand what they had started. She thought about Earth, about the shipyards working day and night, about reserves being called up across human space, about First Grand Fleet being assembled, 50,000 ships. The largest human military formation ever created. The Valdor thought this was a war. It was not yet. This was humanity being annoyed. If the Empire did not surrender soon, they would learn what a human war really looked like. And by then, it would be too late. Admiral Zexthor stood in the Emperor's war room alongside dozens of other senior officers. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls, now marked with red indicators showing human fleet movements. There were too many red marks. Far too many. Status report, the Emperor demanded. An intelligence officer stepped forward. Her scales had lost their usual vibrant color, dulled by stress. My Emperor, we have confirmed major human offensives on 3 fronts. Each attack force consists of at least 3,000 ships. They are systematically targeting our frontier colonies. And our forces? The Emperor asked. We are winning most engagements, but casualties are severe. We destroy 2 human ships for every one we lose. But they keep coming. They replace losses faster than we can count them. Zexthor cleared his throat. My Emperor, with your permission, I have analyzed human communication intercepts. What we have learned is disturbing. The Emperor gestured for him to continue. The humans do not maintain standing armies the way we do. Their entire economic system is designed to convert from civilian to military production rapidly. We have identified over 300 major shipyards across human space. 2 weeks ago, they were building cargo vessels and colony ships. Now they are building warships. They are producing approximately 1,200 new vessels per week. The room fell silent. Finally, the Emperor spoke. That is impossible. No economy can sustain such production. Zexthor pulled up holographic displays. They are doing it, my Emperor. Human civilization has 167 billion citizens across 240 colonies. Their industrial capacity exceeds our entire empire by a factor of 10. And they are using it all for war now. Another officer spoke up. But surely they cannot crew all those ships. Training military personnel takes years. Under normal circumstances, yes, Zexthor agreed. But humans do not have normal circumstances. Every human citizen receives basic military training. It is mandatory. They can take a civilian and turn them into a functioning soldier in weeks. Their reservist system means millions of trained personnel can be activated immediately. The Emperor looked at the maps. Then we kill their shipyards. Target their industrial centers. If they cannot build ships, they cannot fight. We tried, my Emperor, the intelligence officer said quietly. 3 separate strike forces attacked human industrial worlds. All 3 were destroyed before reaching their targets. The humans defend their core systems with terrifying effectiveness. They seem to know where we will attack before we do. Zexthor understood why. Human intelligence gathering was sophisticated in ways the Valdor had not anticipated. They did not rely on scouts and spies alone. They used vast computer networks, AI analysis, and what they called pattern recognition. They could predict Valdor movements based on fleet positioning and supply lines. A communication officer interrupted. My Emperor, incoming transmission. It is marked as a priority message from the human military. Play it, the Emperor ordered. The display showed a human woman in a crisp military uniform. She appeared to be in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen of the Solar Defense Coalition. This message is directed to Emperor Vaxul of the Valdor Empire. The Emperor leaned forward. I am listening. Emperor, your forces attacked our colony at New Terra without provocation. You killed 40,000 civilians. You then attacked our fleets when we responded to defend our people. This aggression cannot stand. You refused our legitimate demands, the Emperor shouted. Your species must submit to the natural order. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. There is nothing natural about your empire, Vaxul. You have conquered 127 species through violence. You enslave populations. You steal resources. You claim to bring order, but you bring only suffering. Every species resisted us. Every species now prospers under our rule. Do they? We have been monitoring your communications. 63 of your subject species have already declared independence in the past month. They see that you can be defeated. They are rising up. The Emperor's face darkened. Temporary chaos. We will restore order. With what forces? You have lost over half your military in the past 6 weeks. Meanwhile, we are just getting started. The fleets you have faced so far? Those are our rapid response forces. 3rd Fleet, 7th Fleet, 11th Fleet. Reserve units mostly. Adequate for policing and patrol. Then what have we been fighting? The Emperor demanded. Admiral Chen smiled slightly. The peacetime Navy, Emperor. We maintain those fleets for pirates, smugglers, minor threats. They are designed for quick deployment, not sustained combat. But now you have our full attention. First Grand Fleet is being assembled. 50,000 ships. That is our "we are serious now" fleet. Zexthor felt his blood run cold. 50,000 ships? It was more than the entire Valdor military at full strength. You are bluffing, the Emperor said. But his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Let me explain something about human civilization, Emperor. We do not maintain peacetime armies. We maintain the capacity to build wartime armies. Every shipyard can be converted. Every factory can produce military equipment. Every civilian has basic military training. When humanity goes to war, we do not send an army. We become an army, she continued, her voice calm but implacable. We spent 10,000 years fighting ourselves. We had 2 world wars that killed hundreds of millions. We developed nuclear weapons and nearly destroyed our own planet. We learned to build war machines because our survival demanded it. When we reached the stars, we brought that knowledge with us. The Emperor was silent. Admiral Chen leaned forward. You thought we were weak because you saw our frontier colonies. You thought we were primitive because our ships looked simple. But you did not ask the important question. Why would a species build such extensive military infrastructure during peacetime? Why would they train every citizen for war? Why would they design their entire economy for rapid military conversion? Why? The Emperor asked quietly. Because we have been afraid since we first looked up at the stars. Afraid of what we might find out here. Afraid of hostile aliens. Afraid of threats we could not imagine. So we prepared. We built redundant systems. We spread our population across hundreds of worlds so no single attack could destroy us. We became very, very good at violence, and we hoped we would never need to use those skills again. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. But then you attacked New Terra. You killed our people. You forced us to become what we had hoped to leave behind. And now you are learning what humanity is capable of when we are truly angry. The transmission ended. The war room was silent. Finally, one of the younger officers spoke. My Emperor, this must be propaganda. 50,000 ships? It is impossible, is it? Zexthor said quietly. We have seen their production capacity. We have seen their population numbers. We have seen how they fight. Admiral Chen was not making threats. She was stating facts. The Emperor stood and walked to the galactic map. His empire, marked in blue, had seemed so vast just months ago. Now it looked small, fragile. Human territory was marked in green. It was smaller than the Valdor Empire in total systems, but the infrastructure markers told a different story. Shipyards, industrial worlds, population centers, hundreds of them. What are our options? The Emperor asked. His military council looked at each other. Finally, Zexthor spoke. We can continue fighting and hope to win through attrition. We can fortify our core worlds and prepare for a siege. Or we can negotiate while we still have leverage. Negotiate? With primitives who refuse our rightful dominion. With respect, my Emperor, they are not primitives. We made that mistake. They are a peer power we failed to recognize. And if we continue this war, they will not stop at defeating us. They will dismantle the Empire completely. Already, dozens of our subject species are in open revolt. Human agents are encouraging them. The humans are not just fighting us. They are liberating our territories. Another officer added, Intelligence reports suggest the humans have made contact with resistance movements on 17 conquered worlds. They are offering support, weapons, training. If this continues, we will face rebellions across the Empire while fighting a war on multiple fronts. The Emperor looked old suddenly. The weight of 3,000 years of imperial history pressed down on him. And if we negotiate, what will they demand? Unknown, my Emperor. But Admiral Chen's message suggested they want independence for conquered species, not necessarily our destruction. The Emperor closed his eyes. Summon my diplomatic corps. Prepare a communication requesting negotiation terms, and recall all remaining fleets to defend the core worlds. As the meeting dispersed, Zexthor remained behind. He looked at the map and thought about the young Valdor who would grow up in a galaxy where their empire was no longer dominant, where humanity had proven that overwhelming force could be overcome by overwhelming capacity. He thought about Admiral Chen's words. Humanity had been preparing for this for generations, not preparing to conquer, preparing to survive. And in learning to survive, They had become the most dangerous military power the galaxy had ever seen. The irony was bitter. The Valdor Empire had attacked humanity to prove their strength. Instead, they had revealed their weakness, and now everyone in the galaxy knew it. In orbit around Earth, construction continued on First Grand Fleet. 50,000 ships all scheduled for completion. The Emperor stared at the holographic projection. His military advisors had spent 3 days planning this operation. 8,000 ships, 60% of the remaining Valdor military, all committed to a single desperate strike. Explain it again, the Emperor demanded. Commander Rathzek, recovered from his injuries at Proxima Junction, stood beside the display. My Emperor, we cannot win a war of attrition against humanity. They replace losses too quickly. But every military has a command center. For humanity, that center is Earth. If we strike there, destroy their government and shipyards, we can decapitate their entire war effort. But Earth is their homeworld. It will be heavily defended, yes, my Emperor, but not as heavily as you might think. Our scouts report that most of Earth's defensive fleets have been deployed to offensive operations. The humans are confident we cannot reach their core systems. We will use that confidence against them. Admiral Zexthor stood nearby, silent. He had argued against this operation, warned that it was too risky. But the Emperor was desperate. The Empire was collapsing. Rebellion spread daily. Human fleets continued their relentless advance. This strike was meant to change everything. When do we launch? The Emperor asked. The fleet is ready now, my Emperor. Commander Calith will lead the attack. I will remain here to coordinate defense of the homeworld. The Emperor nodded. Do it. Bring me Earth's surrender or do not return. Commander Calith was young for his position. Only 60 years old, aggressive and ambitious. He believed the Empire's recent defeats were due to old commanders using outdated tactics. He would show them how modern warfare was conducted. His fleet of 8,000 ships entered faster than light travel and headed for Earth. The journey took 9 days. During that time, Calith reviewed every piece of intelligence on Sol system. The asteroid belt could be problematic, but his fleet could clear it. The outer planets had some defensive installations, but nothing serious. And Earth itself showed only modest orbital defenses. The humans have made a critical error, he told his officers. They sent their fleets away and left their homeworld exposed. We will exploit that mistake. The fleet arrived at the edge of Sol system and immediately began scanning. Calith smiled as the sensors confirmed intelligence reports. The asteroid belt had been modified. Mining equipment, some weapons platforms. Annoying but manageable. Jupiter's moons showed defensive installations. Neptune had a small shipyard, and Earth itself had 2,000 ships in orbit. Only 2,000, against his 8,000. Even if the human ships fought with their usual ferocity, the numbers favored him overwhelmingly. All ships, battle formation. We advance in 3 waves. First wave engages the orbital defense fleet. Second wave destroys ground-based defenses. Third wave holds in reserve. Proceed at maximum speed. The Valdor fleet swept into Sol system like an iron fist. They passed Neptune's orbit. The small shipyard there launched missiles, but the fleet's point defense destroyed them easily. They passed Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter. Each time, minor defensive installations harassed them, but nothing significant. Then they reached the asteroid belt. That was when the real defenses activated. Thousands of weapons platforms hidden among the asteroids opened fire simultaneously. Railguns launching projectiles at relativistic speeds, missile batteries, laser arrays. The asteroids themselves had been converted into fortresses, evasive maneuvers. Return fire, Calith shouted. His fleet scattered and began destroying the platforms. It cost him 300 ships, but they cleared a path through. Mars had a garrison that launched a desperate attack. Calith's forces crushed them, losing another 100 ships. Now Earth lay before them. The 2,000 human ships moved to intercept. Calith felt triumph surge through him. This was it. The decisive battle. First wave, engage enemy fleet. Second wave, prepare to move past them to planetary bombardment positions. Third wave, stay in formation behind us. The Valdor first wave, 3,000 ships crashed into the human defensive fleet. The battle was fierce. Human ships fought with their characteristic intensity, but they were outnumbered. Calith watched with satisfaction as his forces began to overwhelm them. The human fleet began a fighting retreat, pulling back toward Earth, exactly as Calith had predicted. They were trying to use Earth's orbital defenses to even the odds. Pursue them, Do not let them regroup, Calith ordered. His fleet pushed deeper into Earth's orbital space. The human ships continued falling back. Calith's forces were taking casualties, but not enough to matter. They would win this. Then Admiral Sarah Chen's voice echoed across every communication channel. Now. Space around Earth seemed to shimmer. Ships appeared. Not dozens. Not hundreds. Thousands of ships materialized from stealth, emerging from positions throughout the inner solar system. They had been hiding in the Kuiper Belt, using advanced stealth technology that rendered them invisible to Valdor sensors. Calith stared at his tactical display in horror as the numbers updated. 8,000 new contacts, human warships all around his fleet. He was surrounded. It was a trap, he whispered. All of it, a trap. The Earth Defense Fleet stopped retreating and turned around. Now Calith's forces were caught between two human fleets, 10,000 human ships against his 8,000, and the humans had the advantage of position. All ships defensive formation. Concentrate fire! We can still... The human attack cut off his words. This was not like the previous battles. The humans did not use suicide tactics here. They did not need to. This was coordinated professional military action. Precise, overwhelming. The human ships moved in perfect coordination. Groups of 10 focusing fire on single Valdor ships. When one target was destroyed, they switched to the next. It was systematic, efficient, brutal. Calith's communication officer screamed, "Sir, they are jamming our faster-than-light communications. We cannot call for reinforcements. Then we fight our way out. All ships prepare to break through their lines." But there were no weak points in the human formation. Every direction Calith turned, more human ships waited. They had planned this perfectly. They had known exactly how many ships the Valdor would send. They had known the route. They had prepared accordingly. Admiral Zexthor watched from the Valdor homeworld through the limited information they could receive. Scout ships at the edge of Sol system transmitted what data they could before human forces destroyed them. Zexthor saw the truth in those final transmissions. The Earth Orbital Defense Fleet, the asteroid fortifications, the planetary defenses, all of it had been theater, a performance designed to make the Valdor fleet commit completely, to draw them deep into the system where the real defense fleet waited in stealth. The humans had sacrificed their defensive fleet as bait. Every ship that died in that initial engagement was a calculated loss. And now they were taking their revenge. The Battle of Sol lasted 18 hours. When it ended, only a handful of Valdor ships escaped. Commander Calith was not among the survivors. His flagship had been destroyed in the opening minutes of the human counterattack. Of 8,000 ships that entered Sol system, fewer than 500 returned. The worst military defeat in Valdor history, and it came at their enemy's homeworld. Admiral Zexthor brought the news to the Emperor personally. He found Vaxwell in the throne room looking older than his centuries. Calith is dead. The fleet is destroyed. Only scattered survivors escaped. The Emperor said nothing for a long time. Finally, "How many ships do we have left?" "Approximately 3,000, my Emperor, scattered across our remaining territories. Most are needed to suppress rebellions. And the humans? First Grand Fleet has been confirmed. 80,000 ships, my Emperor. They are moving toward our space. Multiple subject species have joined them. They are not coming just to defeat us. They are coming to liberate every world we have conquered." The Emperor closed his eyes. "How long until they reach the homeworld?" 3 weeks. Perhaps 4 if we are fortunate. And can we stop them? Zexthor remained silent. The answer was obvious to both of them. 3,000 ships against 80,000. Even if every Valdor vessel fought to the death, it would not be enough. "Summon the diplomatic corps," the Emperor said quietly. "Prepare a formal request for peace negotiations." "And Zexthor?" "Yes, my Emperor. You were right. From the very beginning, we should have negotiated after New Terra. We should have recognized what we were facing. I let pride guide me instead of wisdom, and now our empire will pay the price." Zexthor bowed. "The empire has endured for 3,000 years, my Emperor. Perhaps it can endure this as well. In a different form." As Zexthor left to carry out his orders, he thought about the human fleet approaching. 80,000 ships, a fleet so large it defied imagination. And according to intelligence reports, the humans could build more if needed. The Valdor Empire had begun this war believing they faced primitives. Now they knew the truth. They had attacked the most dangerous military power in the galaxy, a species that had prepared for total war for generations, a species that did not fight wars to conquer, but to ensure their own survival. And survival, for humanity, meant utterly destroying any threat to their existence. The message went out across all Valdor channels, requesting peace. The diplomatic shuttle approached the Valdor homeworld under heavy escort. Ambassador Maria Rodriguez sat inside, reviewing her notes one final time. Around her ship, 80,000 human vessels maintained formation. First Grand Fleet, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. She looked out the viewport at the Valdor capital below. A beautiful world. Blue oceans, green continents, not so different from Earth. Somewhere down there, an ancient empire waited to learn its fate. Admiral Zexthor met her at the spaceport. He looked tired. His scales had lost their shine, but he held himself with dignity as he bowed. Ambassador Rodriguez, welcome to Vald Prime. The Emperor awaits you. They traveled through the capital city in a ground transport. Rodriguez studied the streets. Normal citizens going about their lives, families, children. They looked worried but not panicked. They did not know how close they had come to annihilation. The imperial palace was magnificent. Thousands of years of accumulated wealth on display, artwork from 100 conquered species, trophies from countless military victories. It reminded Rodriguez of old Earth empires, beautiful and terrible at once. Emperor Vaxul waited in a smaller chamber, not the throne room. A gesture of humility, Rodriguez understood. He rose as she entered, another break from tradition. The mighty emperor standing for a human diplomat. Ambassador Rodriguez, thank you for agreeing to meet. Emperor Vaxul, I am here at the request of my government to discuss terms. They sat across from each other. Admiral Zexthor stood to one side, officially as advisor but also as witness. Rodriguez pulled up a holographic display showing her government's demands. First, immediate independence for all conquered species. The Valdor Empire will withdraw all military and administrative forces from subject territories within 6 months. The Emperor nodded slowly. We expected this. Continue. Second, war reparations. You will compensate the human colonies attacked at New Terra and other locations. The amount will be determined by a joint human Valdor commission. Acceptable. Third, demilitarization oversight. Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only. Human inspectors will verify compliance for 20 years. The Emperor's expression hardened slightly, but he nodded. We have no choice but to agree. Is there more? No occupation of Vald Prime or other core Valdor worlds. No forced regime change. You may maintain your government and sovereignty, provided you comply with the treaty terms. The Emperor looked surprised. You do not demand our subjugation? After everything? Rodriguez met his gaze. No, Emperor. We did not fight this war to build an empire. We fought because you attacked our people. Now that you have agreed to peace, we have no desire to occupy your worlds. Zexthor spoke up. Forgive my question, Ambassador, but why? You have the power to do as you wish. We could not stop you. Because that is not who we are, Rodriguez replied. Or at least not who we want to be. Humanity has made many mistakes throughout our history. We have built empires, enslaved populations, committed terrible atrocities. We learned slowly and painfully that might does not make right. That conquest brings only temporary power and long-term suffering. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We could destroy your civilization, Emperor. Occupy your worlds. Impose our rule. But then we would become what we fought against. We would become another Valdor empire, and eventually some other species would rise up to challenge us just as we challenged you. The Emperor leaned back in his chair. You truly do not seek dominion? We seek security, peace, the freedom to live our lives without fear of aggression. If you can provide that, we have no quarrel with your continued existence. There was a long silence. Finally, the Emperor spoke. I must ask a question, Ambassador. Perhaps it is foolish, but I must know. That fleet at New Terra, at Proxima Junction, at the other battles. You mean that was not your full military? Rodriguez understood what he was really asking. She glanced at Admiral Zexthor, then back to the Emperor. No, Emperor. Those were peacetime forces, reserve units and rapid response fleets, adequate for piracy and minor threats, but not designed for sustained warfare. And First Grand Fleet? The Emperor asked. The 80,000 ships currently surrounding my homeworld? That is our We Are Serious Now fleet, the largest single military formation we have ever assembled. It took 3 months to build and crew. The Emperor absorbed this. But that is still not your full capacity. Rodriguez hesitated, then decided the Emperor deserved the truth. No, it is not. She pulled up new displays showing data that human intelligence had kept classified until now. Emperor, let me explain something about human civilization. We do not maintain peacetime armies the way most species do. We maintain the capacity to build wartime armies. What does that mean? Zexthor asked. It means our entire economic system is designed for rapid military conversion. We have over 300 major shipyards. During peacetime, they build cargo vessels, colony ships, research vessels. During wartime, they build warships. Currently, they are operating at about 30% of maximum capacity. The Emperor stared at the numbers. 30%? Yes. If we went to full war production, every shipyard running at maximum, civilian production suspended, we could build approximately 5,000 new warships per week. Maintain that production for 2 years. That would give us 500,000 ships. The silence in the room was absolute. Rodriguez continued. Our population is 167 billion across human space. Every citizen receives mandatory military training. During total mobilization, we could crew every one of those 500,000 ships and still have reserves. Our industrial capacity exceeds any other known civilization, not because we are conquerors, but because we have always been afraid. Afraid of what? The Emperor asked quietly. Of extinction, of threats we could not predict. When humanity first reached the stars, we asked ourselves, what if we encounter hostile aliens? What if someone tries to destroy us? So we prepared. We built redundant systems, spread our population across hundreds of worlds, designed our economy for rapid military expansion, created military reserves in every colony. We became very, very good at war, and we hoped we would never need those skills. Rodriguez's expression softened. But then you attacked New Terra, killed our civilians, forced us to become what we had prepared for, and now you have seen what humanity is capable of when we are threatened. She leaned forward. But here is what you need to understand, Emperor. This first Grand Fleet, 80,000 ships? This is humanity being annoyed. This is us using a fraction of our capacity to deal with what we consider a regional threat. If you want to see our full military capacity, if you want to see what happens when humanity faces an existential threat, when we commit everything we have to total war. She let the sentence hang. The Emperor finished it for her. The galaxy would burn, not the galaxy. Just our enemies. We do not fight wars of conquest, Emperor. We fight wars of survival, and when we fight to survive, we do not stop until the threat is completely eliminated. No mercy, no quarter. Total annihilation of anything that threatens our existence, Zexthor found his voice. Why tell us this? You have won. We have surrendered. Why explain how much stronger you truly are? Rodriguez looked at him. Because I want you to understand what you started, what you barely survived. The New Terra attack killed 40,000 civilians. If you had killed 40 million or 400 million, you would have seen total war, full mobilization, 500,000 ships, billions of soldiers, human fleets in every corner of the galaxy, and we would not have stopped with your military. We would have reduced every Valdor world to ash. She stood. I tell you this so you understand the mercy we are showing. The restraint. You attacked us, killed our people, and we are letting you live. We are letting your civilization continue, because despite everything, we still believe in giving second chances. But there will not be a third chance. If the Valdor Empire ever threatens humanity again, there will be no negotiations. No mercy, only extinction. The Emperor stood as well. I understand, Ambassador, and I apologize for New Terra for all of it. We believed we were facing primitives. We did not realize we were attacking the most dangerous species in the galaxy. We are not dangerous unless threatened, Rodriguez corrected. We just want to live in peace, to explore, to build, to create. But we learned long ago that sometimes peace must be defended with overwhelming force. That is the tragedy of our history. We became very good at violence because our survival required it. She gestured to the treaty documents. These terms are fair, Emperor. They ensure our security while allowing your civilization to continue. Sign them, honor them, and there will be peace between our peoples, perhaps even friendship in time. Emperor Vaxul looked at the documents for a long moment. Then he signed them with the traditional Valdor seal. It is done. The war is over. Rodriguez nodded. First Grand Fleet will withdraw within the week. We will maintain a small embassy here and monitoring stations to verify treaty compliance, but we have no desire for a long-term military presence in your space. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Zexthor escorted Rodriguez back to her shuttle. Before she boarded, he spoke. "Ambassador, may I ask one more question?" "Of course, Admiral."